right. What's up, guys?
How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing? What's up, Brandon? What's up, Jason?
Hey. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. Thank you so much for jumping on, Jason. We got Jason with Dad University on with us. This is a special time. One, because we're leaning in on the men that we respect from the heroes groups. And I've been following Jason for some time. I've applied a lot of his wisdom with my children and really just looking up to him as an example, as a man and as a father and just everything that he does. So Jason, do you want to take a second, introduce yourself and where you're from and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Jason. I'm with Dad University. I founded Dad University a couple of years ago. We basically just provide content for dads, and it's helping dads learn what they're not taught in school. And I do that through podcasts, through videos, through written content, all of that through our website. And you know, it's always free. It's all free information for people. And that's the mission. You know, I set out to help both myself and others, and it's been really an amazing experience going through all this. So
that's awesome, man. And I love, you know, we talked the other day, and one of the passions that Jason has is exactly that aspect that he said. He literally pours his heart and soul into providing high quality, accessible content. And I'll throw the last word in there, which is free, but I wanted to make sure that those other two were more important and upfront, because his quality content is amazing. One of the examples that I shared with him that we still use today with my kids is, you know, making sure that when a parent feels that they're proud of their children, we shifted our vocabulary to saying, instead of saying, I am proud of you as a parent, we say, you ought to be proud of yourself to the kid, to reinforce confidence and, you know, not them, having them not lean on our words and seeking the affirmation through their action and through confidence of themselves. So huge content, huge bonuses, huge nuggets. And we're just grateful for that, Jason. Thanks so much, man.
yeah, thank you. It's a constant thing to try to put digestible content. You know, a lot of it is how I learn. You know, I put things in a lot of times like in 1, 2, 3, 4, like here's 6 ways, or here are the steps that worked for me. You know, and that's the hard part, is you want to make it really accessible and easy to understand. It's not that complicated stuff when you break it down. It's just stuff we don't learn. And nobody really sits us down. I mean, for many people, they don't have examples. And I can say, even I had wonderful parents. I mean, I had wonderful parents, but I still came through with anxiety and a lot of other things. And whether it was parenting or it was myself, and I didn't learn, you know, the tools. So a lot of it is just, it's parenting, it's relationships, it's self-acceptance, and a lot of the things that we can do. You know, I've just been on this journey for many years of making my life more calm, happier, and that in turn has, you know, improved the relationships of, you know, me with my kids, my wife, all of that, you know. And it doesn't go without effort. I can say it's not something that's just, you know, easy, but it's just been absolutely rewarding as a result of it. And here's the thing too, it's not perfect. It's never perfect, you know. So I don't want to give that impression. It's like, you know, everybody has problems, everybody has issues and stresses. You know, the difference I think with me has been that I've learned this ability to get over it quickly. And that's been something that I've learned. You know, it's kind of like, I equate it to like lifting weights or exercising. It's like, you know, you don't get in shape overnight.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with your mind and your emotions and all that. It's like, you work them out, practice. And then eventually it's like, you know, I'll still get depressed, but it doesn't last me for 2 weeks. You know, it's like the next day I wake up and I'm like, all right, I'm over that. I got to get, you know, I'm up and I'm moving. Or my wife and I will get in an argument, but instead of it lasting and me going in a cave and not talking about it, it lasts, you know, an hour. And then we say, you know, and I come back and I'm like, okay, that was ridiculous. Like, it's just learning all these different ways to not basically waste your life.
Wow.
Being miserable.
That's,
you know?
that's huge, Jason. I love that you summarized it with that, learning ways how not to waste your life, because, you know, these self-defeating actions that we have sometimes of going down the anger path of being angry that you were angry and then just, you know, just beating yourself up and going down this can lessen that amount of time, you think, like you said, think about how much life we can get back if we just got back 30 minutes from every hour argument or disagreement or blow up that we have.
And it's not like you don't still feel those feelings. You still feel anger, you still feel sadness, you still feel anxiety, depression. All that stuff is still there.
Sure.
It just doesn't last as long. It's not as impactful to you.
Let's transition, because I think this is a good time, because this is what you've been studying. This is how you help men. This is how you help fathers learn what they don't learn in school, how to bring some more calm and happiness into their life. And we are dealing with a very unique time. We have a new temporary normal where everyone is isolated and quarantined, and we're doing this podcast or this video from our homes, because we can't go out and interact and see each other. So let's talk about how people are dealing with
what
they have going on in their lives, and then how the quarantine is impacting that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just recently recorded a video that'll launch soon, and it was basically, how to kind of overcome and fight a lot of the anxiety and depression that I think this situation is causing. If you haven't practiced these kinds of techniques and these tools before, it's okay, but now's a really good time to do it.
Sure.
And so for me, that's kind of, I go back on these various things that have just helped me over time, and we talked about it. It's like, whether it's exercise and eating well and getting enough sleep and practicing gratitude, and it's not hocus pocus stuff. It's like, this is legitimately, these are things that have no question impacted my life in a positive way. And it's, it's kind of like when somebody feels so strongly about something, they want everybody to know about it.
Yep.
And when you feel really good, that's a thing. And so I think for me, that's the part. It takes effort, and you've got to want to do it. Some people don't even see the light as well. Like, they don't even see that they can be happy. They don't even see how the situation could improve. So that's tough. I mean, I'm coming from maybe from a different place now. Whereas it's not that this coronavirus thing doesn't affect me. It's, I have another side of my life and business, and it's affected that financially. And, my wife was working, and now she's not. And I mean, there's all kinds of stuff happening, but it's, how do you deal with it? How do you deal with it? And so, the years of work that I've been doing have kind of prepared me and prepared for this situation. So where I'm getting to is, I don't think it's ever too late. And I think that if people can, when they find themselves in these kinds of situations, that's the time to start practicing these kinds of things,
I like that. I think one thing, if you don't mind hitting on, is, you mentioned depression and anxiety, and as we're interviewing men on our podcast and just interacting with men through our mastermind community, we're finding that, more and more men, and really more and more people, deal with this than maybe they let on to be true, or
for sure
people, see that they deal with it. And so, I mean, what would be your tips and advice for people who were struggling with depression and anxiety before, and then now they're quarantined, and, I'm sure maybe it's making it worse. They're having spikes in it. What are your tips on first recognizing that, yes, I do deal with this, and then now in this unique situation, how do I, work through it?
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, there's a couple of very, very specific things that you can do. One of the things is practicing gratitude. For me, practicing gratitude has probably been the strongest deterrent for letting depression into my life. I feel like, gratitude, I've said, is the antidote for depression. It basically, you can't be depressed and grateful at the same time. Like, it's really hard to do that. So practicing gratitude, I literally, I talked about this in my video, is the first couple of days of this quarantine were crazy. Like, our schools closed, My wife found out, her company wasn't going to be, continuing right now. Like I had customers freaking out. It was chaos. And I started feeling very anxious, started worrying immediately about how this is going to affect me financially, just on and on and on. And like, you start spiraling down. And I think I went through like day 3 and I just caught myself. And this is, the work I've been doing for so long. I'm like, okay, wait, I can't go down this road. So what do I do? I'm sitting there like literally talking to myself in this office, in this chair. I said, I've got to do my gratitude. I've got to think about what are the things that I am grateful for right now. And, none of my family has contacted or is healthy. None of them have it. My kids are healthy. My wife's healthy. We have, a good thing going. Like we have a roof over our head. We have food. I'm like the very basic things. And I literally just started thinking about those. And right then I immediately started feeling better.
Wow.
The sports activities that my kids were going to miss, or the graduation of this, or the wedding of this, or like that stuff's just, it went away. It like when you start really thinking about, wow, like and then you start, if you do look at the news and you start looking at what some of the people are dealing with, I can't put myself in that place to say like, oh, woe is me. The pity party was over. I had this because I was like bickering with my wife. I'm being like negative with my kids. I could feel I was like yelling.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't do this. And so to me, sitting down and literally practice, it starts to work. And it starts to work for me maybe a little bit faster because I've done it and I do it on a regular basis. But for anybody, I'd say that's like the number one thing to do. You literally sit down, write down a couple of things that you're grateful for and why. And you start to train your brain to think about the things you do have instead of the things you don't have or the things that are being taken away from you. Because that's what this virus feels like. It's taking away my job. It's taking away, my kids' summer camp, whatever, I saw some posts and this woman couldn't go to her Soul Cycle, or, the yoga class or whatever.
Yeah.
When you put it in this perspective, you look at some of the stuff that these countries are dealing with, or even some of the cities in the US, and it's just, it's heart-wrenching. And we have to think about it from our perspective of the gratitude that we have of like, I'm safe right now. Like I can go down to my fridge, have something to eat, say hello to my wife and kids. Like I really, really need to focus on that. And it really made a mental switch for me. It really did.
Do you have a suggestion on the practical ways that you do the gratitude list? I know I do. I write down 3 things in my journal every single day, but what I can catch myself sometimes just going through the motion. Is there a way that you set up set yourself up for success so that you truly do get that deep feeling of gratitude and that positive energy every single time?
Well, yeah, I think, you have to have realistic expectations. It's like anything where you just can't expect it. Like, I just, thought of 3 things and I'm going to magically feel better. It doesn't work like that. It's like with anything. Yeah, sometimes you are going to go through the motions. Like, oh, I'm doing my gratitude journal, and I write it down. It's like meditation. It's like it just doesn't work overnight. I would say that you write the 3 things down, whether you choose the morning or the night is, you can do both. That's, ambitious. But you write down, like I said, what those things are, those 3 things, and then you write why. Why it, and then you visualize them. And so if it is like, the fact that my kids are healthy. So then, and why is that? Well, because I will get to spend more time with them throughout, whatever. And then you actually visualize them running around and having fun and laughing. And like, I think that kind of thing is that you have to mentally visualize it. And then just continue to do it. and continue to practice it. And sometimes it is, gratitude's one thing, but then also just catching yourself talking negative. I do that all the time. I find myself, coming to my wife with some sort of negative information. It's like, did you see how many people, I like the first couple of days, you see how many people died about, like, I just stopped. I was like, I may think it, I'm not going to verbalize it, because I don't need to make that something that now she knows or she's thinking of, or my kids. So I think that's a way to sort of solidify it, is just, and it does take a little bit of time and practice, but I think that is one way of getting out of that, and you have to see some light.
Sure.
There's more tips, and we can, talk about them, but I think that's a big one.
That's huge. I mean, honestly, I'm going to apply it. I've gotten into the habit of writing it down, looking at them, thinking about it. But, what you said is write it,
and why
is it, why? And those are huge. Those things I have not done consistently. And, as you were explaining those, I was visualizing in my own mind time with my children, and it got me excited and emotional. And so I think the visualization connects the emotion. It's a huge tip right there. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like that visual part will definitely touch on the subconscious mind as well, and it'll kind of cast out the fear that you might, your default mode of fear and just anxiety and depression and all that stuff. And I think that visualization is going to be a really powerful tool for men and everyone to implement. So I appreciate the advice. Thank you.
Yeah. You think about, putting positive images in your head. It's the same thing of, when you think about something that makes you happy, whether it's, food, sex, anything, like it literally stimulates your mind in a positive way. And so when you think about these things, that helps you become happier. And probably, I don't know the scientific part of it, if it releases some dopamine or, it releases something. But I'm sure that it does. And that's the same thing, which is another tip, which is reducing the negativity that you're consuming, So, the news and social media and that stuff, like, granted, there's some funny things going on around social media right now, with memes and songs and all kinds of like that stuff's cool.
Yeah.
Because it's positive, and it's funny, but like, there is a ton of negative, especially the news. And it's just, I try to stay away from it as much as I can. It creeps in, but I'm trying to stay away from that. And so putting these positive images in your head is just, you want to fill your brain with positive stuff, so the negative stuff can't even fit.
Got it. Yeah. I love that. The next thing that I love those two things, making sure that we're handling depression, anxiety with gratitude, and the action steps of actually writing it down, writing why, and then visualizing. And then the second piece of, limiting the negativity, stopping our own negative talk, and then also filtering the amount of negative information that we're pouring into our minds. Huge tips, huge advice for really everyone. But the next thing I want to go into is, let's talk about relationships, and maybe twofold, maybe a spouse or, significant other relationship, and then the children relationship. What would your advice be to the people that are, we're in quarantine? And it's very interesting because, we talked before we hit record on this call about how the quarantine is going to amplify whatever you had before. And if that was good status in your relationship or good relationship with your children, it'll hopefully amplify it. And if it was on rocky, if it was on, shaky ground, then that's going to be amplified as well. So what would be your insight or your words for the men out there, the fathers dealing with both of those?
So I think it's actually the number one parenting tool and the number one relationship tool is empathy. And what empathy is, for people that aren't familiar with it, is it's putting yourself in another person's situation. It's looking at that situation from their perspective instead of your own. And I think my opinion that the number one problem in relationships is that there just isn't any empathy. Yep. Everything is thought of from our own perspective. We're looking about, what can we get out of it? What is it that I get? And we just tend to not look at it from our partner's perspective. And that's really hard to do because oftentimes it means you've got to kind of self-reflect and be honest with yourself. And why would we do that? Like we don't want to look at what we're doing wrong or what we're bringing to the table. We want to blame somebody else. And I swear the empathy too, it's like the empathy and the gratitude, like if you just study those two things, you'd be amazed at how many positive changes happen in your life. Like, those two things alone. So I think for relationships that might be struggling, empathy allows you to then not have to focus on yourself. And so you think about it, even for your kids, like I got to think about what are my kids going through right now? Like their school was closed. Like my son's 6th grade camp. It's like he's been looking forward to that for 3 years, like it's not happening, and like all these things from their brain. Now, from my gratitude brain, adult brain, I'm saying, it's not that big of a deal. We've got to focus on the big picture, but for a 6th grader or an 11-year-old, like those are big deals. I can't see my friends right now. Like, so the perspective is a little different. And we try to put our, adult perspective on children, and we try to put our man perspective on our significant others, or whatever your relationship is. And like, that doesn't always work, And so I think the empathy of actually looking at the situation prior to the coronavirus, that alone can solve a lot of problems. But I think, now, I'm looking at it, like, even for my wife, it's like, wow, like she's a nurse in skincare, and it's not an essential business right now. And so she's not working. She's worked since, even through, part-time with the kids, like it's a huge part of both her social, and like, I have to look at that and realize, like, okay, yes, I'm going through my own stuff, but look at what she has to deal with too. Like I'm still working, I still have the stuff, but she doesn't. So she's trying to like do some things. And that's the stuff we've got to look at, is like looking at the things from the other person's perspective. And what happens too, here's the secret, is that when you use empathy and you become really empathetic, you don't get pissed off at stuff, or you do much less. So give you an example. Happened, a while back, where my wife came home and said something and was upset, and normally I would have, gotten back. Normally maybe a couple years ago, whatever, I would have like jumped back at her and just gotten upset, and we would have gotten an argument over it. I took a step back and I was like, all right, wait a second, something happened at work, or something happened in between work, and something's going on. And it turns out there was some personal issues that had happened with a friend of hers that she was upset about. Like, it was all kinds of stuff that had nothing to do with me. And I asked her, I said, hey, is everything okay? Like, instead of just me biting back, I said, hey, did something happen? Because, in my head, I'm going, what just happened did not make sense.
Yeah.
And when you learn that technique, it saved me from having an argument. Like, instead of going, oh, look, this is how you treat me. I've been here all day working, blah, 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 whatever. I'm looking at this going, wait a second. She just had a horrible day. She just found out her friend's in some trouble. Like, all this stuff. Like, and so that alone allows you, when you start thinking about it from other people's perspective, it just, like, it saved me from having to be in an argument, and I was able to look at that. So I think, it's a long answer, as I have a tendency to just keep talking and talking. I think the relationship-wise, the empathy is just a huge one.
Yeah, it's almost that you're saying that. So the goal of using empathy is to, at least when I've done it in my life is it almost opens your heart to be more compassionate for their situation, right? Like literally leads, or it ought to lead to, if you're doing the empathy correctly, to some compassion or to some understanding of what they're dealing with, which then should change the way that you communicate. Because without the compassion or the empathy, then we're again communicating from a single selfish perspective of my world and what's going on with me and how you came into my world. And so the empathy and the compassion opens it up to the both of you. Is that right?
Right. Yeah. No, it's right on. Absolutely.
Sweet, man. So I want to kind of dial down a little bit more, because I have a lot of friends and colleagues who have younger kids and they're all locked in a home right now. What are some tips for these parents that are, to the limits? I know you said empathy, and putting their themselves in the children's shoes. Any other practical items that maybe could bring some peace or some calm or some understanding to how to deal with, being in the home with your children all day, every day?
Yeah, I think a couple things. I would say, one, you've got to lower your expectations. You can't expect that, everything is going to be smooth right now, and so when you have these expectations, it's like, being on a business call and you think that it's going to be quiet. I said, hey, I'm going to be, talking to these guys on Zoom recording. Can you just, make sure that you're not yelling and screaming, but I had that expectation, and right or wrong, although my kids are older, but if they were younger, they wouldn't even hear it. They would just be running around screaming and doing that. So I think you have to have realistic expectations, especially for this situation. So I think that's a big one, and kind of give yourself a pass. You don't have to be a perfect parent, especially right now. You never have to be, but especially right now, you've got to let some things go. You know what? If the house isn't perfect, it's not perfect. If the kids aren't eating perfect, it's okay. It's okay. If they're on technology a little bit more than you would like, it's okay. This is like a unique situation. I said, my desire to deprive my kids of technology for at least 2 more years is gone. Totally gone. Like, I had this master plan they weren't going to be able to use. Like, it's gone. They have to talk to their friends, and they have to do schoolwork, and they have to do, like, there is no option.
Yeah.
And so I had to take a step back. I was forced to, and just be like, you know what? It's okay right now. Like, it's really okay. So I think lowering your expectations in that aspect, and just not being so hard on yourself of trying to handle everything. That's one. It's very hard to be, dad, parent, PE coach, principal, and all these things all at once. So just give yourself a little bit of a break. The other, I'd say, is setting up a routine. Whether you do have work or you don't have work or whatever, I still think a routine is essential. And I'm a routine guy, so it's kind of, it's easy for me to say, but I'm still getting up early, doing my exercise routine, I'm getting dressed like I'm going into the office. I'm keeping the same thing. And granted, I didn't plan for as much interruptions during the day, but I'm keeping the routine, and my wife's still doing the same, and my kids are doing the same. And we're kind of, it runs a little now with younger kids. That's a little bit harder, but I think you still need to do it. You get up, hey, we're having breakfast. Hey, we're going to, do our morning walk, or we're going to have a little bit of exercise, like whatever the routine is. Hey, we're going to read for 30 minutes. And then, hey, now you can watch TV for an hour or whatever, we're going to do art time. We're going to do music time. We're going to do it is up to the parent to have a little bit of structure. Yeah. But here's where I say is, like, especially if you're battling anxiety and depression, these little things, when you have a schedule, you feel a little bit of sense of accomplishment on these little things. Even just keeping a schedule, granted, you don't want to be hard on yourself if the schedule doesn't work out perfect, but like, oh, okay, I worked out. Like, it gives you this little hit of dopamine of like, okay, I feel good. Like I did that. I accomplished that. And also gives you and the child predictability. And that predictability reduces anxiety, because a lot of anxiety comes from us not knowing what's going on and we not knowing what's happening next. Kids love routine. Yep. They just think, you don't believe me, how many times have you seen the same movie or listened to the same song over and over and over? Like, there's a reason for that. They love the predictability. So, I mean, even if it's that, like, hey, we're going to watch Toy Story from 8 to 10 every day, or whatever, whatever their movie is. It doesn't matter. Like, if you keep that routine, that seems to help calm things. It helps, predictability, and the kids just know, and that, I think it works for the older kids too. I mean, my kids have been, granted, they've grown up with routine their whole life. But hey, Dad, it's 2:15. We're on break. They're pretty regimented. So I think that's something with the younger kids, though. You've got to at least try.
Yeah,
I agree. And if you have a partner there, you've got to be able to trade off if you can. Stop entertaining, but don't beat yourself up if they're spending an extra hour or 2 or 10 in front of technology. Which I'm a huge against it. Like I preach all the time against technology and against all this stuff. I think we're in a unique time. We are. Like, there's only so many coloring books and walks and games. And there really is only so many when you are stuck in the house 24/7.
Yeah. It's that's huge advice. I one thing I want to call out is the routine piece. I think just hearing you speak, it seems like you have a routine for yourself, but then you as a unit in the family, you have a family routine. And I think that would be my encouragement to the listeners, the people who have children. One thing that we're working on really figuring out, but even before this occurred, the pandemic, we had our time that we needed to fill ourselves up with our routine. And many times that happened before the kids woke up or in cracks of time when they were or breaks or whatever. You got to get filled so that you can fill them up. Or it's kind of like the airplane analogy. Put your mask on first so that you can put their mask on. And I think that's what you're speaking to is having a routine as a family unit, but then also having a routine where you can get some peace and some dopamine and exercise or what have you.
Right.
I have a quick question just in regards to, this is phenomenal advice. And say you're a family, you're a man, head of the household, you have the routine down, you're feeding yourself, your family has some structure, some routine, and, we're all locked inside. We're not going out. We're not meeting people. We're not doing those types of things. What if there's that, I've come across other men who have that kind of structure and routine going in their life, and, it's it's successful for them. It's working well. But then let's say I want to do more. I want to serve other people. How can I reach out to more people? How can I impact or help and do those types of things? Do you have any advice for that? Are you doing anything in that nature?
Well, I think that becomes part of your routine. You mean like, if you have a desire to do something else, I think you allocate that time, if that's what you mean. Like, for me, I have, like this work that I do, I allocate a lot of time to it, because it's a passion project for me. I think that's something that, if you have the desire, you've got to, even when there's no coronavirus crisis, you still have to evaluate how you're using your time,
Right.
And if you're not complaining about anything, then you're good.
Yeah.
But if you're complaining that like, well, I don't seem to be able to get stuff done, I feel like I'm just not, whatever it is, but yet you're, binging on Netflix, then, you've got to kind of take inventory of that. Is that what you mean? Am I answering? Does that make sense?
Yeah, kind of. I was just thinking if there's anything or advice you had are you scheduling? Like you're taking time now to schedule calls with us. So obviously I see you're someone who's at that level. Any tips and advice for guys who don't maybe run their own business or community, but they still want to maybe reach out and help someone?
Yeah, I think even, whether you want to reach people locally or nationally, I would, there's probably some stuff online. Maybe, we can find out if there's some resources, maybe we can post them or something where people could go if they want to help. I know, one of the things that I think I see people doing this is whatever their area of strength or expertise is, they seem to be helping people or making content related to it or whatever. And I'll give you an example for something that people might not even think of. Like, let's say you are really good at training animals. Like, I'm just randomly like, you're really good with your dog and that you have these techniques.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe record a video, and you can put that out to people and saying like, hey, you have time with your pet right now. This might be a good time to do that. Or, you are really good at art. You could record a video or write some article about art and give that to people. I mean, so it doesn't necessarily, how you're helping people can depend on your expertise, versus actually, if you wanted to actually help in the field somehow, or like at some volunteer, helping seniors get meals, I think you just have to figure out first of what is it that you want to do, or what is it that you're looking for, if it's just kind of random, you say, well, no, I have some time. I want to see how I can be of service. Maybe that's what you have to figure out is like, how do you want to help people and who do you want to, is it animals? Is it adult, seniors? Because there are people that definitely need help right now, so that, like for me, that's where I feel like, I did a couple lives. I'm trying to produce additional content, and I don't get paid for this. I mean, if I have a sponsor or whatever I do, but, for me, like I just produced a video, a couple days ago. It wasn't a sponsored video. It's like, I didn't get paid for that. I used my time. I used my energy. I came up with the information. It took me a couple hours to that's for me, that's how I feel I can help. And that's where I feel really good about helping people that way, so I think you just have to figure out kind of what's your thing.
Yeah.
And then, try to amplify it,
Yeah. I like that. I think, I know I've done it in the past. You're speaking to this almost as, when we can connect it back to the depression and anxiety. When you're feeling down, a good way to be back up is to go serve. If you're looking at your situation and you're feeling down about it, if you're feeling out about it, if you're depressed about it, a good perspective that I was told by a mentor is to go serve someone else, and like you're speaking to, find that opportunity, find what you're good at, and just be. I think people are becoming more bold in this time of quarantine to post stuff online. I'm seeing Facebook I've never seen before. I'm like, I didn't even know you had a social media. It's just people are craving connection and they want to help, and they're seeking different ways. So I think this is going to break open a lot of interaction on the online platform for sure.
Well, I'd ask Brandon, is there something specific for you, or did you have somebody ask you that question, or is there?
No, I love what you said. Find out what your expertise is or what your unique ability is and how you can add value to anyone. And then just kind of like Sammy said, go out and be bold and be willing to share it and do something with it. That's a great start right there. And look, I agree with what Sammy said, is getting outside of yourself and thinking about other people will kind of take away the issues and problems that you're dealing with also that are being amplified because you're just constantly dwelling on them. And so helping someone else through their problem will completely eradicate your issues and you'll probably find, they'll dissipate with that. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know for sure, but I think a lot of people, it depends on their situation, whether they're feeling that need to help other people. So many people are in emergency situations for themselves.
Yeah.
That they may not be in a place to even think about it. Mm-hmm. And that's where, it does feel really good to be able to do it. Like the fact that I could record, I had the time, my family was okay. Like that's where the gratitude comes in. It's like, I have the ability to do that, where there's people with like no job, no income. I just talked to a friend of mine, both him and his wife are out of work now.
Wow.
And they're involved in sporting events, and there are no sporting events happening. They can't do anything. There's no, their stuff doesn't really translate. Like it is sporting events, and and so they're going to have to figure that out. Like that's something, and it's tough. It's tough to really, so that's where it's hard, because I think there's so many people. It's like, there's like this one camp that, is really struggling. And then the other one where like, gosh, how can I help? And we hope that more people can get to that spot, but it's tough. It is tough.
I appreciate that. I'm just jotting some notes. I'm thinking about some other content, some other videos we can do. This is a time to start maybe stretching yourself and experimenting with different ideas and businesses. If you've had that idea for a while, well, and you're fortunate enough to not be out of work or to still have your job, then this would be a good time to start experimenting with what does that look like? Is it possible? Can I bring it from idea to conception in this quarantine time while I am still working? So just jotting some ideas, man. I'm going to rewatch this video. This is a ton of nuggets. Jason, I'm extremely grateful that you took the time to share with us today. Any final words for the audience that's listening? Any advice to the dads? Anything that you want to leave them with?
Yeah, I think just remembering that, especially whether it's social distancing and the staying at home and doing these things that are being asked of us, that it's really not about us as an individual. This is about collectively our population as human beings and being okay and stopping this thing. And it's just, it's heart-wrenching to think that people aren't complying with this, and that people aren't thinking that it's a big deal, and I have to believe it's just maybe because they haven't been personally affected by it. I'm just now, got a call from a relative that now a friend of theirs has it, and like it's starting to creep in where it becomes a lot more real.
Yeah.
And for people to not really take that seriously, and I think, people, the majority around us, I think are, at least where I live, and neighbors are like, we go out in the evenings and people are kind of waving and, doing some things, and they're going back inside, and they're keeping their distance, and, but there's still, Costco's crowd, people are still going to Costco and the grocery stores, and because they have to eat, and it's just scary. It's really scary, that, and so I think for that, maybe that's the parting words, is not so much, it's think about it for everybody else. And if you can do something, that's, you are doing something. I saw a meme where it said, a year ago, lying on the couch was considered lazy. Now I'm saving the world.
I love it.
I thought that was great. It's like, you are, just, you are saving. And so from that perspective, I think it's just, if people can do that and not think about themselves. And then for anybody else who, if you are suffering from anxiety or depression or any of those things, or you're having difficulty, reach out to people, and if it isn't other people in your life, then reach out to a professional. Like, therapists, I have a friend who's a therapist, they're doing online consultations, they're doing phone calls, they're doing Zoom calls, they're still available. And I think it's going to be needed. I think people are having some tough times, and don't be afraid. That's the thing I always say as a man, don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help. There's nothing bad about that. If anything, it's an admirable thing to ask for help and to reach out to people. So
that's awesome.
Jason, maybe you could share how people can reach out to you or get in contact with you, or if you'd like to share any of that, go ahead.
Yeah. Daduniversity.com is the website, and then I'm on every social channel. Most of my crowd is on YouTube and YouTube channel, and you can subscribe and see the videos there. I put up videos all the time, and that's probably the easiest way to do it. And from there, there's contact information everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'll answer questions. People have questions, I'd be happy to answer. Assuming I can. I don't pretend to know what I don't know, and so there's definitely situations where I don't know the answer, and I'll tell you that.
Nice.
But for the most part, the things that I've been through and some of the things I've learned, if anybody can, learn from it or get value from it, then I'm all for it. So
awesome.
Yeah, that's incredible. We appreciate the time, Jason. We appreciate the insight, the information, and just the wisdom that you have. And yeah, looking forward to doing this again. Maybe we do like a parenting, take your gloves off, just get real down and dirty with some tips and advice. But Jason, it's been great getting to know you, and I look forward to doing this more with you.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me on.
We're grateful. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate you.